God Morgan, and happy Wotan's Day to you. Today we talk about the wisdom of Wotan, later known as Othin. Before I get started today, I want to say thank you, a huge shout out to all of those that are a part of, and certainly the masterminds behind New Reality TV. Newrealitytv.com hosts is a streaming platform that hosts a plethora of perspectives in our spiritual journey that can help us really understand a way forward for us. Remember, we're as unique as there can be. So, by all means, feel free. Please check them out, newrealitytv.com. While you're there, you can always subscribe. And for a small monthly fee, you can actually check out so many different perspectives and different understandings, including Whispers of the Norse. Of course, our weekly show that we put out that talks about many different topics of spirituality and our journey along our path. I also want to, for those of you who haven't checked out, you first, we have all of our audio platforms. You're welcome to check out our morning show that is reproduced on these audio platforms every day, every weekday, I should say. And it is available for you to download wherever you get your podcasts. In addition, if you haven't liked, followed, and subscribed on any of our video channels, I would encourage you to do so. This helps us to gain the algorithms that actually push the message much, 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 much further than we could otherwise. Finally, for those of you who have some jingling in your pockets that you want to put to a good use, by all means, feel free to stop by our tip jar and just drop them in there. You're welcome to do that at any location. And I want to give a huge shout out to Karen Kavelog. I hope I'm saying your last name right, Karen. Very much appreciated your continued support. So, with no further ado, let us consider the wisdom of Odin. Today we talk about wisdom, but I want to say that there's two forms of wisdom within our lives. The first form of wisdom we've spoken over many times, and this is the intellectual wisdom. These, of course, is where we take our knowledge and we combine it with an experience, whether that be first, second, or third hand, and we kind of meld those two together to form a higher level of knowledge. This is what we refer to as wisdom. Now, one of the other aspects of that, of course, is emotional wisdom. Now, emotional wisdom, many people may or may not know that emotions are those feelings that we have based on experiences that we have in this reality. So, what we see, hear, taste, touch, smell, and all of the physical sensory input we have to include another source of called imagination. Many times we imagine certain scenarios within our minds, and this creates an emotional response. This is no different than accepting it through our physical sensory input. It hits those emotional filters, drops down, releases the hormones from the heart. Those come back to the brain that recreate these emotional filters that we have behind our sensory input. They're also going to set the border of the aura. We've seen this many times. Well, emotional intellect, if you will, how to feel. I don't know, for those of you who have followed us, you probably remember that when we release the hormones into our bloodstream and that those hormones arrive at the brain does a comparison. So it looks at the composition of your whatever chemistry your heart and your body has allowed to create, plus what it's combined with, right? All the other chemistry that may be within the body, and it appears before the brain in some form. So the brain looks at this and it identifies it on its little cheat sheet. So it has a little sheet, a little recipe card, I call it, and it kind of looks up and it says, okay, I'm supposed to feel this way, whatever that way is. This recipe card is kind of the foundation for emotional wisdom. How are we supposed to feel? Now, the good news is that we control this recipe card. We can say, hey, I realize that the chemistry that you just brought back says that I should be angry or mad or whatever, but I don't want to go that way. I want to travel the road of peace or harmony. So you know what? Yes, I recognize your anger and I get it, but I want to be down here. I want to be down on happiness or up here in happiness, whichever way on the list it is. We have that choice. We can do that at any time, right? And this comes from emotional wisdom. Many times we're going to learn about emotion. What our friends and reading and watching television and all of the parts that are playing, we're kind of absorbing these experiences, and our heart is kind of going, what about that? Oh, what about that over there? Oh, okay, what? I see what happened there. How do I feel about that? A lot of these lessons are being passed to us in every day, and we're watching, or we're hearing, maybe smelling. There's a lot of additional physical sensory input that goes into emotion than just intellect. However, we're going to begin to gain these pieces of intellect, these emotional intellects. I should feel this way. Mom and dad may have a big part of that. Older brothers and sisters are going to have another part. Good friends are going to have another part. Maybe significant others are going to have another part. All of these pieces are providing us with emotional intellect. Now, once we gain the intellect, remember there's another step. There's the step of gaining the experience, of actually experiencing this emotion. Many times, particularly in some stereotypes throughout the world, it's men aren't supposed to have emotion. Men are not supposed to be, it's a sign of weakness, right? Well, it's not. It's the farthest thing from it. As a matter of fact, it builds strength. Emotions, and i.e., our feelings, are what make us who we are. When we try to stifle them, we find ourselves, as you recall from our bandwidth, that silt. Well, as we try to tamp down and quash those emotional states, those emotional releases, and we tamp those down, they become the silt in our pipe there. And this then causes problems when we receive a large, like I said, a trauma, whether real or imagined. Now all of a sudden we're having struggles to think, to get our way through this, because we've used up that last piece, that cognitive headspace that's up on top, right? And so this is going to cause, and remember, also, if our trauma is large enough, it spills outside of this bandwidth we have for processing, and it spills outside, we can actually receive physiological symptoms, i.e., the body will begin to do different things. I'm always reminded of young love, with many, several sons and a daughter, of course, have grown up, and watching their emotion, of course, love being the most curious of all, because it can be so overwhelming. It's a very powerful emotion, very powerful. It leads people to do amazing things. All right, so love is a very powerful one. However, when you're inexperienced with it, again, you have the intellect. You may have read, um, some books about Romeo and Juliet kind of thing, all these love stories, and so you kind of have this idea, but then it hits you, right? And then you find the one, and you're in love. Now, my shield maiden also always had a wonderful phrase that I have adopted, to in the understanding is, um, where you're loving something versus being in love with something. Now, in love means action. It's more of an ing statement, right? So you're in love with them. You're loving in all directions, and life is so wonderful. This is really an emotional understanding that we're going to gain from experience, not your first love, that boy or girl that you met in middle school, or maybe even elementary school, um, whom catches your eye, and all of a sudden your heart beats a little differently. You might get sweaty hands, maybe some sweat in the elbows. Um, you stutter over words that you absolutely know. These are all really symptoms of love. Now, you're saying, well, wait a minute, this is showing physiological symptoms. What's going on? Well, love, real love, you have to remember that love is going to ignite imagination. Now, imagination is going to provide a substantial energy source to the scenario. So, to what we think we're feeling, right? So, we're getting these emotions coming up, this chemistry that's showing up in our brain, and we're like, oh. And then, of course, should this be our first love? The recipe book's not written yet. So we're going, right? And then our imagination takes over, and our imagination kind of imagines, two and a half, and I'm completely stereotyping here, but the 2.5 kids in the home, and the white picket fence and the whole thing. So our imagination is taking this energy of hope, which has now been created, right? It's now being generated in full force, and it's going to run with it. So it's going to, grandkids and great grandkids, and a huge ranch with all the trimmings, and whatever it is that you dream of, as a young person who kind of is just beginning to understand the whole scenario of things. Love, in its energy, is a pretty powerful teacher. Now, what happens when, of course, sometimes things don't work out for whatever reason, right? And so we find that the removal of this energy from our existence, when said significant other, or thought significant other, outlines that this is not working for them, whatever the case, now all of a sudden you're without this energy, right? Now, in some cases, all of the energy involved in this imaginary love relationship may have been created by our imagination, right? So we see, and I'm always reminded of the stereotypical, very young girl, very stereotypical, right? But she has a crush on a boy, and she is in love. She's infatuated, right? And but the boy doesn't reciprocate. He's not that he's not interested, is that he doesn't know, right? Remember, boys and girls grow at different mental stages, right? So he's doing his own thing, man. He's in the hot rods and horses, or whatever happens to be the thing of the day. And she's, of course, seeing him in the hallway, and she's writing love things in her notebook and all over her stuff. And then one day, of course, boy shows up connected to, arm in arm, hand in hand, whatever it is, with another girl. Now all of a sudden we have what? Heartbreak. Heartbreak is simply the lack or the loss of love energy. That's what it is, right? If we boil it all down, that's what it is. We've had this love energy, real or imagined. Now remember, imagination is a very powerful tool, very powerful. And we can imagine ourselves amazing things. Reminded of the studies they did of several men who returned from being a captive in the Vietnam conflict. And when they returned, in one case, the person whom they were speaking with actually improved his golf game by visualizing it. By visualizing it the whole time he was a prisoner of war in Vietnam. And this, of course, this visualization, which we'll call imagination, kept his muscles, moving in the right direction, even if only up here. This is a very powerful understanding for us to have when we want to do something, whatever it is. We simply imagine it. Put it up here. We visualize it repetitively. We go through the motions, and imagination can actually teach our physical form how to do things. Well, the other side of imagination is that it takes what is real and experience as an example, and it can kind of exponentiate it, kind of just grow it up to be this much bigger thing than it really was or is. So imagination has kind of this double-edged sword, right? So it is what it is. We have to remember that when we are trying to determine what is our emotional state and how are we managing it, what's real versus what's imagined, okay? And it can be dicey sometimes, so keep your eyes out and keep thinking about it, and it'll come clear to you as you move forward. So imagination drives the energy sometimes that builds this emotional wisdom. When we experience heartbreak, as an example, and our heart is just shattered on the floor, we've lost the energy, or our perception is we've lost the energy of love, or that person anyway loving us. That experience is now added to what we knew could happen, right? When it happens the second and third time, we're building experiences onto this platform that we know as pain and suffering, right? Real or imagined, it nonetheless happens that we can fall in and out of this love energy, right? Because it's just an energy stream like anything else, okay? And so we can create it or we can receive it. Now, one of the things that I know I've personally experienced is when other people have loved me. My mother, my shield maiden, my children, my grandchildren, whomever, and others throughout my life have expressed love. Now, I look at them and I say, do they really love me? Or are they just saying this to placate, to add filler? Well, here's the thing. You can feel love. You can feel it. And sometimes, here's the big one, is we have a potential of overlooking it because we're making things overly complex. One of the things that as an example, my shield maiden and I, for those of you who don't know, have been married 35 years. We we have gone through an enormous journey together. 5 children, and now we have 4 beautiful grandchildren. And our life has been, I will not say drama free. I will say that we've had plenty of experiences at which to draw upon. Yet, each Sunday mornings is the mornings we all sit down for a homemade breakfast. We do it every week. And my shield maiden enjoys doing it, right? Why? Because she loves, and that's her expression of love. So there are many things that I could say, oh, well, she doesn't really tell me or pamper me or anything like that. No, she doesn't. She recognizes that I am my own person and that I am constantly kind of moving around and getting other things done. She's very busy, you know, with the kids, even though they're adults now, and grandkids. So she's busy. She doesn't have to. I know it. I know it by the small things she does in our lives. However, again, it would be easy for me to overlook that, right? And just say, well, you know, she doesn't do this or she doesn't do that. So again, all goes down to imagination. Now, my brain could blow that up and go, you know, oh yeah, she never shows does this or does that. Well, you know, that's not important. What's important is that I know that she loves me. She is doing these small demonstrations every day, all the time. All right. And obviously, Sunday breakfast is just one of those small things that she does throughout the day that makes sure I know where she stands. Many times we have a penchant for overlooking the smaller things, the simplicity, the ease, the comfort. We expect things to be difficult, to be challenging, to be just raw and primal. And they don't always have to be. Energy flows naturally in the universe. It's as plentiful as air. It moves as freely as the breeze that we endure when we are, of course, with Mother Yord. So it's always with us. Emotional wisdom is just as critical as intellectual wisdom. Matter of fact, I would be willing to argue to some extent emotional wisdom is more important than intellectual wisdom. Think of yourself momentarily, if you will. You can put it in your third eye for a moment. Imagine yourself without the ability to see, smell, taste, hear, or touch, feel anything on your body. Imagine what that would be like. The best way to do that, I always find, is to imagine myself floating in a darkened cave, maybe, floating in a body of water. Right? So you're kind of weightless there. You're just floating. Your ears are under the water, so you can't hear, you know, rule out smell and maybe even taste for a moment. Your eyes are closed. You're just still. Imagine what that would be like. Many people fear that. Many people would accept that as being a very fearful experience. But think about it. Think about what that would be like. How you could focus your mind on anything. You could think about anything. And you'd be okay. Right? This is the idea that my ancestors have told me that we will experience when we leave our physical form. We're going to leave behind this chemistry maker that we call a physical form, and we're going to ascend into a spiritual energy form, right? And so then all we have to rely on now is our spiritual connection to our descendants, to our ancestors, and allowing them to now pass on their experiences. So we're just going to hear their tales within our mind, right? So all of our other sensory input is now gone. We have no way of creating new emotion, right? Because that's really what the chemistry does, is it helps us to create emotion. Brain recognizes this emotional journey that we will travel. So it's super critical that we gain these experiences, we have these experiences, we learn this understanding while we're in our physical form. Once we ascend to the spiritual realm, we don't have that creation potential anymore. We simply refer back to now the experiences that we have had, those memories that we've had through our lifetime. So, a very powerful reminder, I think, that we should get out and experience emotion, feeling. And it doesn't matter what stereotype you want to fall under and what role you're wishing to play in society. What matters is you accept and you manage your emotion. Not manage it and quash it, manage it in dealing with it, embracing it. This is the key to growing, evolving our mind and our line of congruence to our heart. This is how we're going to do it, right? So think about that the next time you feel the urge coming on to quash that emotion and say, nope, I'm not going to go there. Nope, I'm tough, or I'm strong, or I'm whatever. It's okay. Emotions are there to teach us, to expand our understanding. Both what we would classify as good emotion and bad emotion, they're both teaching us, growing us. And this is so important to our mental health. All right, my friends, today, of course, being Wootens Day, I pray that you have a wonderful Wootens Day and that your experiences help you to learn your future trajectory, how to control your mind, how to be in charge, how to not let other people dictate how and what you think or what you feel, because you are your own. You're your own person. You have your own path. So live that path. Okay? For those of you who will be there, I will see you tonight as we involve Sporks Mall once again, and we answer a question that we've received in the email. If you haven't had a question answered and or won your free t-shirt, by all means, check out my website, norsewhispers.com. There you can scroll all the way to the bottom, look to the left, you'll see a big orange button that says Ask Me a Question. Ask me a question. Let's get dialogue started. Let's open up the discussion and start dealing with it. If I make a show about your question, you'll win a free t-shirt. I'll get it in the mail to you, no charge to you, and that you can keep and wear and use, and whatever you want to do. All right. In the meantime, also remember always that we have the Facebook chat. Live chat is always open during these presentations in the morning, so you're always welcome to ask questions there, as well as having the chat open during Sports Mall. So again, we draw in questions and then we answer them in order. So kind of a random choice. So anyway, we will see you again tonight, 6:30 p.m. Alaska time, right here on New Reality TV, as well as YouTube, Facebook, and TikTok. We will see you there. I wish you the very best. Wootens Day. Love and light, my friends.